Okay, I thought I would do a video on a couple of responses I've gotten. These are not actually from people online. This is actually from a couple of people in the real world. People who learned about what I'm doing here with these videos. It's not actually people I've met in person, but it's people I used to actually go to meetings with that have gotten rid of me on their little social media accounts. I'm really broken up about that. But on a comical note, I have sent some of these videos to people in AA who did me really dirty. The ones who said I was going to die drunk, and the ones who said that, that I was never going to get clean up my act and I was never going to get sober again. I had to send them a few videos, and even to friends of that pile of shit sponsor I used to have. And they almost all inevitably had some smarmy little slimy comment to make before they would block me. But these are people I actually knew in real life. But one of the accusations I think that bears talking about in this video, because it's an emotion, it's a snarky little way of trying to put someone on the defensive, and a lot of Quackaholics Anonymous members use it when they're trying to debate you or when they're trying to argue with you or whatever. It's a way that they try to get you off your feet emotionally and put you on the defensive. It's quite a passive-aggressive trick, and it's one of the reasons I'm actually going to make a video about it, because it's kind of for anybody who has to deal with these people, whether in the real world or in the online community. It's almost like a way of saying there's a way to arm yourself with some facts about their little slimy ways of trying to undermine you, where you can kind of see it coming out of left field in advance. So it's almost like kind of like a heads-up warning type of video for people who actually have to deal with these people in the real world. The first one I wanted to actually talk about, I mean, I've gotten a couple of them. I wrote them down anyway just to kind of give me an idea on where I want to go with this. And someone, it's been a long time back, maybe 6-7 months ago, it said that it's like you've never left AA, because all you do is spend all your spare time ranting and raving against AA. So in a very real sense, you're still in AA. It's something that, in its own little underhanded way, is supposed to put me on the defensive. See, this is the part where I'm supposed to explain or justify my existence by saying I don't spend all my time bashing and complaining about AA, and I don't actually spend every single day and every single hour or every single moment thinking about the cult religion or the cult program. But that's kind of what that kind of underhanded way of talking to people is designed to do. See, that's going to put me on the defensive. And really, when you think about it, the person making that allegation, I don't really, you out there too, people who are deprogramming or getting away from AA, it's a heads up of understanding that you don't have to justify yourselves to these people. You don't have to justify yourselves to members of the cult religion for the way you think or the way you behave or what you do. You don't have to actually respond in turn with any kind of... It's designed to give you that illicit, angry initial response without thinking, so they can claim to take a moral high ground. I see them do it all the time. When I was in the program itself, they would bait you emotionally until you would lose your temper with them, and then they'd try to act like they were on some high ground above you because of it. And once you're kind of onto their little game, it doesn't work in the real world, and it's a good way of almost like ridiculing them. And I want to talk a little bit about ridiculing later on. But first off, it's a real clever way of also kind of attacking me by saying ranting and raving against AA. You notice that the person didn't address any of the talking points I make on this channel about what goes on in the program of AA. They didn't talk about the emotional, mental, and physical abuse that's very real that takes place in Alcoholics Anonymous. They didn't talk about the phony religious dogma that they shove down people's throats when they're trying to tell them that it's the only way for you to get clean and sober. They didn't bring up the fact that the court system monopolizes upon it. They didn't bring up the fact that AA is a corporation that has enough money to throw into successful little ad campaigns in pop culture and media and advertising. They didn't bring up the fact that the 12-step industry wants a stranglehold monopoly over drug treatment and drug addiction and alcoholism. They just chose to attack my character personally. If you were going to get into the territory of logical fallacies, it's what they call an ad hominem attack, where you attack the person's character in an attempt to undermine their position in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, if I wanted to play devil's advocate here and I said, yeah, I do spend all my time ranting and raving against the program, it doesn't prove a word I've said is wrong. It's kind of like a couple of times in the past when I was having, say, like a philosophical discussion with someone, and they'd say, well, if what you're saying is true, that would be depressing. That's a bit of an appeal to emotion, and AA members are really good at using logical fallacies, but it's an appeal to emotion. Just because something may be depressing or something may not be necessarily elicit a positive response does not take away the truth value of that position. In other words, if I did spend all my time ranting and raving against AA, it doesn't prove that anything I've ever said on this channel is wrong. It's just a way of attacking my character. But it's kind of an interesting thing that they would say it's like you've never left AA. I think I want to talk a little bit about that, and I want to go into a little bit more detail about that. I don't spend every hour of every day hating AA, and all I do in life is not bashing AA, but you're also making a presumption when you say something like that, that I'm just this angry dude that's just going off without any logical coherence on the internet and you know, raging without any rhyme, reason, or purpose. You notice that it's a bit of a judgment value that you're making on someone when you say something like that, because you're not taking into account the fact that maybe, just maybe, because of what I saw happen to many people in AA, what happened to me in AA, and the fact that it's still actually going on in AA might have something to do with my reason for making these videos. The fact that maybe the phony treatment that they push on people that is not successful, that doesn't have any tangible results, that doesn't help people overcome their addictions, the fact that that's still going on, and it's going on not, you know, in some limited type of sense, but the fact that it's infiltrated into the court systems and in the treatment centers, that might have some motivational reason as to why I make these videos. The fact that there's probably a lot of people out there who haven't realized it yet, a lot of people who are currently stuck in the rooms of AA answering to a bunch of sadistic old-timers and being fed phony solutions and being put in fragile states of mind, which is, you know, prime for brainwashing and bullying them. The fact that there are people out there that are experiencing this right now might have some reason or motivation as to why I make these videos. You know, maybe I'm not making these videos for the sole purpose of ranting and raving. Maybe I'm making these videos because I have a good reason to be angry and a good reason to be outraged and a good reason for wanting to reach and expose something for what it truly is. I mean, again, like I said, this is a bit of a heads-up video. It's letting people out there know who are trying to break away from the cult, or people who have to deal with these people in real life, or people who are in the process of trying to overcome all the years of turmoil and brainwashing that or months or whatever, however long you were in the cult. Maybe it's a good way of knowing that when someone just goes after your character by saying something like, you know, well, you just have a resentment against AA, or, you know, well, you know, you're this or that, with a character type of assassination or some judgment call on you, you notice they haven't invalidated your reasons for feeling the way you do, and they haven't really invalidated your position. All they've done is done an undermined, slimy little move in an attempt to get you off your feet. And it's just something that I noticed that AA people often do in online debates and online discussions and things like that. They'll go for some emotional type of underhanded move that's meant to make you angry, that's meant to make you defensive. And when you're in those types of fragile states, you're a little bit more easier to attack. It is better if at all possible, to try to remain calm. And I know you're going to say I'm a little bit hypocritical for that because I lose my temper on this channel quite a lot, and you would be right. When you're trying to debate those people, it's easy to lose, any kind of cool collectiveness and kind of just veer off into the territory of anger. But again, that's kind of understandable considering the fact that how many of us out there, me included, for however long you were trapped in the cult religion, you weren't able to speak out against the insanity that was going on. You weren't able to say anything against the great sacred program. You weren't able to talk openly about what kind of monsters hide behind the facade of being, sponsors and great gurus. You weren't allowed to do anything. You were just constantly told that your self-will was bad, and you were told that your, that your own thinking got you in the situation where you are so that you could be bullied and mistreated. You're told that you're probably going to die drunk, if you don't submit to their will. You've been told that for so long that maybe there's a great sense of liberation at being able to ridicule and speak out against it. That's another thing that I actually wouldn't have thought of at first when I started doing these videos. When I first started doing these videos, I just knew I wanted to expose them for what they were. I knew that I was still in a lot of raw emotional turmoil in my own self, and and I'm not completely over it. I'm not beyond that. But one of the most liberating things, I think, about something that has kept you in a state of intimidation and fear for however long, in my case, it was nearly over, it was over a decade, it was right at 12 years of it, is the ability to be able to mock it, the ability to be able to scorn it, the ability to be able to jeer at it and laugh at it for what it is. It's kind of like being a little kid afraid of shadows in the bedroom, and then when you turn the lights on and you see the shadows are made up of nothing whatsoever, and 99% of the fear that is bothering you is in your imagination, you should rightfully be able to laugh at that. You should rightfully be able to ridicule the threatening boogeymen for being the fake threat that they really are. AA gets into people's brains, and it gives them this feeling that it's some kind of all-powerful entity, almost like a god, that you can't actually deviate from, that you can't think outside the box in, that you can't question, that you can't say anything critical of without going completely on the defensive. It sets itself up as this terrifying entity that you can never escape from, because escaping means drunkenness and death. And then when you're able to step outside of it for a little while, and you're able to get away from it, and you're able to say, something, I'm not crazy because I feel this way about a cult that destroyed my life. Something, there's nothing wrong with being a little angry and frustrating and wanting to vent about it. There's nothing wrong with wanting to ridicule something that's held up into such an untouchable, impenetrable force that you can't ever say anything openly critical of. And even today, if you really think about it in the outside world, I've noticed there are people who don't take quite the kick in the guts approach that I prefer to take with Alcoholics Anonymous. They'll open up their articles almost apologetically. They'll say something like, AA has helped a lot of people, or, I don't really have a criticism of AA because it saved a lot of people, or something like that when they're opening up their articles or their statements or something like that. And you notice the type of response it gets from AA members. AA members still have an angry, almost violent, aggressive response to anything that even remotely asks questions about the efficiency of the AA program. AA has an almost bullying attempt to want to silence people who have anything critical to say about it. That's kind of one of the reasons why when I started doing this, I just said it was going to be no holds barred. It was going to be no holding back. I was just going to say exactly what I thought about it. And for me, that was also greatly liberating to be able to vocally say what had been on my mind for so long. And then it was even more greatly freeing to find out there were other people out here like me, other people that had been in the program, other people that had drinking problems that came to AA for help and didn't get them. And I think that the people underestimate at times the power of ridicule, I think people underestimate the power of being able to give voice to something that you've kept internally inside of you for so long. You know, AA encourages a lot of feeling stuff, and it tells you that your feelings aren't real. It tells you that your feelings aren't facts, which is actually, totally redundant in one way because, I mean, human beings are feeling organisms. Everything about us is feeling. I mean, everything about us is senses. Can you describe anything in the world that gives you any kind of feeling that doesn't have something to do with something in the senses itself, or something that does something to you emotionally in terms of feelings? I mean, feelings and facts are actually inextricably linked together in some kind of way. I mean, it's kind of how you learn basic empathy. You know what I mean? I mean, if somebody comes up and punches me right in the face, I mean, it doesn't really feel too fucking good, so you kind of learn a little bit of a lesson in, well, I don't like feeling physical pain, so by default, I don't want to go around inflicting physical pain on other people. It's really rather rudimentary when you sound it all down, but even rudimentary logic is not allowed in the cult religion of AA. And the power of being able to ridicule something that's been rammed down your throat for so long as a fact, and something that has told you that your feelings don't matter, and something that's told you that your thought processes are useless, the ability to give voice to everything you feel against that and be able to actually say that out loud is actually kind of like a first step of, like being set out of jail for a long time after being locked up. The ability to move beyond the jail cell and walk wherever you want to walk without being under constant threat of being put back in the jail cell. And the fact that not just for me and me alone is a healing process necessarily, but I think also for other people that I've networked with that have the same experiences, that have gone through the same things, that want that ability to be able to say something critical about this monolithic poison that is Alcoholics Anonymous, that is actually, like I said, it's permeating the addiction treatment center field. As a matter of fact, I think it's taken the addiction treatment center field and it's set it back almost 70 years because it refuses to evolve. It refuses to take a look at the facts. It refuses to do anything but keep perpetuating the cult religion that it really is. And, as far as saying I've never left AA, I think that actually speaking out against AA is not really so much proof that I have left AA, but speaking out against AA is shining a light on what's still going on in AA. I mean, to throw that in at the very end, going back to what I was talking about earlier with that response about, all you do is bash AA, you've never left AA. Again, that's another little slimy, underhanded tactic. That's a way of saying, look how much more enlightened I am than you. All you do is rant and rave. All I do, I'm just so wonderful over here. I could actually dedicate a whole series on logical fallacies. I wanted to do that a long time back when I first started this channel, and I just didn't get around to it. But yeah, ad hominems, they call it, but there's other things as well, like straw man arguments, and I remember talking about I wanted to do a whole episode on that, and I didn't, where they paint a parody of a position you haven't taken, and they attack the parody as though they're attacking and validating you. It would be kind of like, I guess a good real world example of that would be, if I said, let's just say that having a 2-drink minimum in a bar was stupid. I'm just making this up off the top of my head, and somebody came along behind me and said, so what you're saying is you want people out there driving drunk, and you want people to get killed in automobile accidents, and you want drunk people just loose on society at large. I never said any of those things. I just said that having 2-drink minimums in bars is stupid. But you notice when they come and attack all these things you've never said, they're acting like they've somehow discredited you with that. I see that a lot in the online community, not just in AA, but I think since the purpose of this channel is exposing them, I think I should spend a little bit more time trying to talk about the tactics they use to undermine you. Because I think for some people it's as liberating to them as it is for me to be able to speak openly against it, to be able to talk against it. it's kind of like a few people have tried this little underhanded tactic on me. They're saying, well, if you don't like AA, you can always choose not to go. Again, that's one of those little one-liner comeback rhetoric type things. It's meant to leave you a little bit speechless momentarily without a response, without a well thought out response. I don't remember who it was that said demagoguery is something where you can say it in a couple of sentences and it takes volumes of words to disprove. But when you say if you don't like AA, you can always leave, you forget about the fact that AA is still out there presenting itself as the only viable solution for drinking and drug abuse. You're also forgetting that people who have drinking and drug abuse still need help. And as a matter of fact, when I get a response like that from AA members, when they'll say something like, well, if you didn't like AA, you just didn't have to be there. That right there in itself is actually pretty revealing to me, because it's saying you don't give a shit if people recover from their alcohol abuse problems. You don't care if people recover from their drug abuse problems. All you care about is whether or not the cult religion works or not. And if it doesn't work, then you're more or less telling them to fuck off out there into nowhere and die. Because if they don't like it here, you're not giving them alternatives. You're not giving them alternative viable solutions. You're not even interested in doing that. When you say, well, if you don't like AA, don't go, you're discounting the fact that there's a lot of people out there that are still suffering with substance abuse issues that are not getting the help they need, and the only help that you're showing them available to them is a inefficient, shaky faith healing cure that is got a really bad success rate and a really even worse track record. And a lot of people say that can't be proven, and I could, I've talked almost 20 minutes on this one, so I'm not going to go into all the statistics and the details. But yeah, when someone tries to come at you with a character attack on your character to undermine you in some kind of way by saying something like, it's like you never left AA, all you do is hate and bash AA, they're trying to box you into a little bitty category of telling you that they figured out some way to dismiss you by using these little smarmy ass tactics. And sadly enough, for those of us out here in the, well, not sad for us, but sadly for them, those of us out here who are now in the real world and who are no longer under the shadow of their bullying manipulation, we don't have to answer to them or justify ourselves to them any longer. We don't have to really do anything other than whatever the hell we want to when we're free from that cult. For me today, I choose to do these videos not because of some rage or some, deep-seated hatred or anything like that. I choose to do these videos because I choose to expose what I saw in there as phony, and because I care enough about the people who are still suffering through that mistreatment, and because I care enough about all the people that it's harmed over the years to try to put a light on it, along with many others, and say there is a way out, that you're not going insane if you're stuck in those meetings and it's all bullshit, that there is a way to successfully quit drinking on your own and get away without faith healing and without being trapped in some disease forever and ever and ever. So I don't really see what I'm doing as ranting and raving. Actually, I see what I'm doing is actually rather hopeful, because you look at the flip side of the coins here. I'm out here telling people that if you want to recover from drug and alcohol abuse, you can. You can put it behind you in the mirror and forget about it. You can move on. You don't have to be answerable to a cult religion for the rest of your life. On the other side of the coin, what they're telling you is that you're diseased, sick, immoral, incapable of making any decisions on your own, and you need them to do all the thinking for you, and you need them to decide what is spiritual and what is not, and you need them to control every aspect of your life from now on. You tell me what's more depressing. I think that's about all I'm going to do for this one. I'll see you guys next week, hopefully.